Hope hope we can go through the agenda relatively quick. I'm for the individuals who may be not familiar with Community Board 2. I am Lenny Singletary. I serve as chair of Community Board 2. Our first vice chair is Mr. Leonard Jordan. Our second vice chair is Ms. Barbara Zala-Gringer. And our secretary is Ms. Jessica Thurston. And Taya Muller serves as the district manager. With that, I am going to hold on introducing the rest of the leadership. Those individuals will introduce themselves when they give their reports. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I would entertain an adoption of the agenda. Ms. Zala-Gringer, second, Ms. Fibush. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the November exec committee meeting? If you have any edits, please direct them to the board office so we can make those changes. And with that, we will accept the minutes from November 22nd. The next item on the agenda is the chairperson's report. I just completed, literally, a meeting of along with Daughtry. She and I just completed a meeting of the Atlantic Avenue mixed-use plan. And I would encourage everyone, if you have the availability, that on Tuesday, January 17th, I believe the hours are between 6 to 8 p.m. You should be aware that there will be notices sent out through the community board and through other vehicles. But if you can, it would be the first of a planning session to get input and feedback around Atlantic Avenue. As you would imagine, this was commonly referred to as the M-Crown project. There are a lot of aspects to Atlantic Avenue, and not just around use, not just around buildings, but even streets, street crossings, things that make life a little bit more amenable to the residents in the community of all walks of life and all throughout the intergenerational paradigm, so that it is a safer environment. There are aspects of traffic calming. And one of the things that we're trying to do as a group, working closely with Councilmember Crystal Hudson and her staff, various representatives of the Department of City Planning, Department of Transportation, and a whole host of stakeholders, some of which their names may be familiar to you because they may have served previous roles within Community Board 2. But the real purpose of this is to make sure that it is a collaborative process. It is engaging, and it is transparent, but really it is founded in the structure of hearing from the community as opposed to dictating to the community. You know, if you may, we may be members of Community Board 2, and while a good portion of Atlantic Avenue may sit in our catchment area, if you don't live close to Atlantic Avenue, it's almost, I would dare say my words, a little bit arrogant to tell someone on Atlantic Avenue what they need, right? So it's important to get that feedback early on. And I must say, in the meetings that I've been a part of thus far, I'm excited and encouraged for the collaboration that's going to take place. I like the tone and the engagement and the way that those meetings have taken place thus far. And I'm excited for what the future may hold. And again, I encourage everyone who has the ability and the schedule will allow that you save the date, January 17th, between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. More information will follow, but it's the first of the community engagement meetings. The second thing is, I know many people were able to attend the BQE meeting that took place last week. And while the BQE meeting is probably, and I say this loosely, still a work in progress, there are many more aspects of the BQE process that's going to be, I think, a bit more complicated and challenging than what the initial goals are and mission of the Atlantic Avenue project. clearly there's so many more factors, but the presentation still has many unanswered questions. I don't think that the core issues have fully been addressed yet. I think there's some things that are being discussed, again, my lens, that are on the periphery, but not at the core of what needs to be addressed. And this is not the type of project that requires us to go from the outside in. We need to get to the core. We need to get to the real construct of what the challenges are around the BQE and have better engagement from the various departments of transportation, including the state. You know, we don't often hear from the state Department of Transportation. And in like manner, we don't always hear a lot from the federal Department of Transportation. This is going to require all of the departments of transportation to opine, have a lead, have a say, and not just city planning, and not just the Brooklyn Office of City Planning. It's going to require a lot. And so I hope that as we continue to engage and work with the visioning committees and the different stakeholder groups, and even CB2, you know, now that I have a seat at the table as the chair of the CB2, of CB2, that we do a better job of getting to the core of the issues, not spending too much time on things that aren't really going to address what the residents and the motorists and what the negative impact could be if we don't do something to the promenade and other things that are related to the BQE project. So more to come on that. And then, you know, last but not least, this is our last exec committee meeting for the year. And I just simply want to say thank you. You know, if you take a minute and look back what we've accomplished in a year where we haven't met in person in a while. I think we all got together to elect Taya because of necessity, but we did a whole heck of a lot this year. And if from the looks of things, we're going to do a whole heck of a lot in 2023 as well. But I'm not going to look too much into the future. I am going to spend a lot more time right now saying thank you. We all should be commended for what we've done. I want to also thank the various new members of the community board for your commitment to the work that is required of us to do on behalf of our neighbors, whether they be from the business community or the residential community, or just even from social service and stakeholder community. We have a lot that we have on our shoulders. We've done a whole heck of a lot to get us to this point. And it's really a collaborative effort. No one person, no one office can get it done. And I would argue that all the things that we were able to get done without an office, we have a person, but we did not have it. We still don't have an office. There's a lot to be done. We've got individuals that are in new seats. We have people serving as new chairs. We have people serving as new vice chairs. You know, the Finance and Personnel Committee led us through a very long process, but was able to get it done. So we have a lot to be thankful for. We have a lot to be appreciative for. And we have a lot to be proud for. And for all of that, I want to say thank you. And so with that, that concludes my report for the evening, for Chairperson's report. Let me stop before we move on to see if anybody has any questions of me. But that's what I have thus far. Barbara.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. I was at that meeting on Thursday. There were over 300 people in the virtual meeting. But I was wondering, even before there's a final plan, we anticipate that they will be coming to the board to make a presentation of the different design proposals.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Was the question is the plan going to be presented to the community board? Is that was the question?
Before it's finalized, yeah.
That is the plan. And I think it's going to be, you know, it's a lot of things being said, a lot of things being written. I think there's competing viewpoints about what the community board, what the BQE is going to look like, whether that's from local, state, government, from stakeholders. I think there's a lot more that needs to take place. And what I'm hopeful is, and I'm not certain that it will happen, because there's a lot of community boards that are affected, but I'm hopeful that similar to the Gowanus Canal project, when we had a collaborative meeting,
Right.
I'm hopeful that same process will take place so that there are multiple points of views and it eliminates the challenges an agency would have trying to reach multiple boards. I'm hoping that we can take a model from the Gowanus project and just bring everyone together and have some type of engagement. I'm sure as everyone should feel comfortable that under Sydney and Esther's watch, it's going to be hard for you to do something without having somebody come to the committee or the board. I don't think they're going to allow it, but to the extent that that doesn't become a challenge, the goal is to have as much collaboration and information sharing as possible. What exactly it looks like at the moment, I'm not clear on, but I know there's a push to have as much transparency as possible.
Thanks. That sounds great to have that way.
Yeah. Sid?
Thanks.
I was in the committee meeting when Julie Barrow, who's
Yep.
the volunteered to come to she didn't volunteer, I sort of pushed her a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if she volunteered, but
Yeah, she volunteered, but she agreed to come to the next transportation committee meeting. I have, I mean, I don't want to, I was gonna get this into my report later. Obviously.
you can save it for your report.
Okay, so I'll save it to the report, leave it for that.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, great. Let's move on to agenda item number 6, committees to report. I'll start with economic development and employment.
Okay, thank you, Chair Singletary. Hi, my name is Bill Flournoy. I am the chair of the Economic Development and Employment Committee. My co-chair is Denise Peterson. Secretary is Catherine Gilman. The committee report was given at the general meeting, but there's some things that have occurred that I just want to mention, updating. As far as the asylum seekers is concerned, it's been in the news quite a bit lately, especially with Title 42 basically being rescinded. We may actually start seeing many more asylum seekers coming to the city, and the council are having a meeting, I think today and tomorrow, and also Mayor Adams has also mentioned the fact that the city is in a situation where we're running out of state funds. They expect to actually take care of these individuals. It may cost up to $1 billion a year to actually take care of these individuals, the asylum seekers. And it's only going to continue. They're expecting another couple 100,000 people coming in, okay, over the next period of time. So that's a big item that's going on right now. And they're looking for additional funding from the federal government. Whether that's going to happen with the changing of the Congress is questionable. Okay, that's one of the biggest issues. And the other thing that's going on is right now, illegal cannabis sales have actually really taken off. The enforcement is against unlicensed cannabis sales is by the sheriff department. They're leading the actual outreach to actually look at these unlicensed individuals and actually go after them. It's a problem because they have to first make a purchase of a substantial amount before they can actually go in and actually do any seizures. So it's another thing that's going on right now, and it's a big problem throughout a lot of the boroughs. And it's pretty much unfair for those individuals who are going through the process legally to actually get licensing for this. So that's a big issue right now. I think it's something that's going to continue for quite some time. And that's just 2 items that I'm going to report on. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And to your co-chair, Denise Peterson, who I see as well. So thank you both. Next committee is Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. Hi, everybody. My name is Leonard Jordan, and I'm the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee. And my vice chair is Mr. Brandon Smith, who I think is here. And we met on December 13th. Not a lot to report, but the committee was in total agreement about hosting for the vacancies that are in our office right now. And that is the assistant district manager, community associate, and the community assistant. Hello? And the community assistant part-time position. And one of the things, the time frame we had selected was December, January. I think it looks like more like January for the posting, and certain interviews to be done between January and February. The other thing is that we did talk about, we do have templates that we have from previous occurrences when we hired people in those positions. Not the assistant district manager, but the others we've hired before. So we have templates, and we also have, that indicate, the script, and as far as the questions that we would ask and things of that nature. Of course, we're going to meet again to go over that, which will be before our next regular meeting, which will be January 26th. But hopefully we'll have more information to report to you, and some good news, and certainly some relief to our district manager, Taya Mueller. That's about all I have, Mr. Singletary.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan, and to your co-chair, Mr. Smith. I don't know if we planned it this way, but the next committee to present is Health, Environment, and Social Services.
Good evening. Not back to back this month, which is nice. We had a great meeting at the beginning of the month, not so long ago, actually, on December 7th, where we had our standard COVID-19 update, and Ms. Anadu gave a great report. And again, I'll highlight that this is going to be an increasing time for potential COVID positivity across the city. There's been an increase in cases, not necessarily hospitalizations and deaths, but just in new cases. And an interesting point she brought up was that only 9% of New Yorkers have received a bivalent booster. You may wonder, what does that mean? Well, basically a booster that's accommodating all the recent variants that have been coming out for this this disease. And I know it's been a long slog through this whole process, but this next month or so is a time when we got to be extra vigilant as a community about all those precautions that have become so known throughout the COVID-19 crisis, which is staying indoors when you can, wearing a mask when you can, getting vaccinated. So I encourage everybody to think about that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we did the liquor license at the general board, so I won't repeat that. We had a discussion about our health fair for June of 2023 at the committee meeting, and this was a really productive and good discussion where we tried to hammer out some of the basic elements of how we as a committee prefer to do the health fair. We had a lot of discussion about dates. We had previously discussed different venues, but ultimately the committee wanted to express a preference that we do the health fair on June 10th, 2023, which is a Saturday, and that we return to do that at Commodore Barry Park. In terms of what side of Commodore Barry Park, that we had a bit of a discussion at the committee, and the committee is pretty flexible with doing it on either side of the park, I think, because our partners in this effort, the Friends of Commodore Barry Park, have expressed their preference that it be on the North Elliott and Park side of the park, whereas last year we did it on the Navy and Flushing side. So that's basically what we discussed. It was a good meeting. I did want to ask you, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with us proceeding with the health fair on that date, because I want to incorporate your feedback, and if you'd like to have a separate discussion, I'd be happy to have that with you. But I want you to be comfortable with what we're doing as well, too.
I'm actually fine with the date. I locked it in. I think one of the things that came to mind for me with regard to location is some of it's going to depend on the participants and the type of requirements they may need. So, for example, the committee did an excellent job of bringing out the Mount Sinai prostate screening mobile van. When you think about the recommendation of where our partners would like to have us move, what's the feasibility of the mobile van? And so that's what I think about, one. And two, if there's a way for us to have a mobile van that speaks to women's health needs, then now that's more space that we need to consider. So I think the more we talk through this and a broader visioning of how we would want to add to the success and build upon last year's success, particularly because we're starting out so early, will help to answer those questions that I just raised.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I do need to get the permit down in order to move forward, which means I need to reserve a specific side of the park. And the vendors typically require us to tell them that we have a permit to do that. So I mean, we've had some initial discussions with our vendors about what sides, about what things they might need. And between some very interesting conversations about things that definitely cannot happen, like one vendor wanted to have us create a bathroom that would be specific to their staff, and that clearly is not something that can happen in a public park. It seems from the parking and the setup that either side of the park will work for both parking a van and having our vendors set up. And the prostate folks were particularly flexible with us last year, and I really would look forward to having such a good relationship with them this year. What I would propose, and I don't want to sidetrack this executive committee meeting, but what I would just propose is that we consider, because we're asking the Friends to move back from a later date to an earlier date in the month than they would have preferred, perhaps we consider their suggestion of moving to the North Elliott Park side of the park. Looking at the parking and the logistics of it, it definitely seems that there's enough parking that if we get the NYPD to cooperate with us like they did last year, that we could make the street parking work.
So listen, your point is a great point. I'll leave that up to you, Nicole, and the team. When we have hopefully another conversation about it, we'll solidify those points. It's great to hear that at least one of the providers is flexible, and I would hope that as more of the providers are flexible, it would be nice, even if it's no more than just a great faith effort, to work with our friends of the park as much as possible. That's how you build trust and collaboration. They give on one point, we give on the other, and not that we really have a particular desire. It's really just making sure we meet the needs of our providers. So I'm on board with that. It sounds great.
Okay. Could we possibly take a quick comment from Ms. Saylor Gringer, because the Parks Committee is partnering with us on this endeavor this year?
Barbara?
Thank you. I was just wondering, the other area we're talking about is near the swimming pool, right?
The swimming pool is kind of in between the two areas.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you feel there's enough space there. That's all. That would be my only concern.
Yeah, I think my thought is that there's definitely not as much space as there is on the side that we did it last year. You can definitely say that. But then again, you could have 50 or more vendors in that space that we did last year. It was so large.
Right.
I think if we're able to use both the North Elliott Park side and the walkway, there should be more than enough space to fit the vendors that we would need for this event. And I think I think as is being displayed, you can look and see there's the area that was circled just there is the North Elliott Park side that the Friends would prefer us to use, and the area that is being highlighted here on Navy Flushing is the side that we used last year. And while it clearly has a lot more open space, there is a added benefit that there's a lot more foot traffic on the North Elliott and Park side, and the the area in between where there's that ball field is the area that's anticipated to be closed next year at the time of our event. And it's TBD with the bathrooms. They're closed right now. They might be reopening next year, but they can't commit to, the Parks Department can't commit to them being open at the time of our event.
Thank you.
All right. So I think maybe we can take much of the rest of it offline, but I appreciate the opportunity to chat a little bit about that.
Thank you. And again, thank you to you and Nicole for your leadership for the help.
I did not say that. I am blessed and happy to be joined by my co-chair, Nicole McKnight, and I want to recognize her for being another great year of being partners in running the wonderful committee, the HES committee.
Thank you. Next committee to present is land use.
Thank you very much, Chair Lenny. First, on behalf of the committee, wish to give best wishes for the holidays, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas to all. We will be meeting this coming Wednesday for landmark land use. And I'll just again thank Karen Johnson for the work she does as a secretary. She's balancing both her business and family and the work that she does for us. Our co-chair, Daughtry Christoffen, has been coming up with some ideas for what we can do about housing. And I am Carlton Gordon. Our meeting is coming up this Wednesday. We'll be discussing a Landmark Preservation Commission Certificate of Appropriateness for 520 Clinton Avenue. This is, or AKA, the Church of St. Luke and St. Matthew. And it'll be doing a number of things, not just, worrying about signage, where we'll be doing a number of items, both can be seen throughout the property as well as other things around the building of the church. So we'll be doing that. And again, on this coming Wednesday, we'll be trying to discuss and some of the work that Daughtry's been doing to try to get more affordable housing in our community board. We're trying to come up with some ideas and discussions, and we'll be doing that as well as the discussion for the church. So again, for holidays to everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlton, Daughtry, for a job well done. Next committee to report is Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Chair Secretary. It's Barbara Zoller-Gringer, the chair, and my stalwart vice chair, co-chair is Andrew Lastawecki, who's also on this call. I reported on our meeting last Wednesday at the general meeting, talking about urban park rangers and what they do for parks and the activities that they conduct. We also talked about a presentation from Bridges for People, who are very much interested in renovating Trinity Park, which is adjacent to the Manhattan Bridge. We also had a presentation from on the Bridge Plaza Community Garden redesign project. And our committee voted to support the project and wanted the full commission to vote on that. And I don't know, since it was last Monday, I don't know if this executive committee can vote on that tonight. If so, I can give you much more information. If not, I guess we'd have to wait till next time.
Yeah, Bob, we don't have that as an agenda item for tonight.
Okay. And of course, I wish everyone a joyous holiday season and that's full of contentment and good health.
Thank you, Barbara. And again, thank you to you and Andrew for your leadership on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Next committee to report is Transportation and Public Safety.
Good evening, everyone. My co-chair is Esther Blount. John Quint has been taking the minutes for time immemorial. And we continue to see busy meetings, even though we've had a continued problem getting the Department of Transportation to come to our meeting. The Brooklyn bus network redesign was announced, and I encourage people to go look at it because it moves a lot of the buses around. Frankly, the different bus routes are going to be significantly changed. The general policy is to increase the distances between the bus stops. The B65 bus from Flatbush Avenue to Smith Street is proposed to be removed. And I encourage other people to look at it to get a bit, I know my neighborhood, I don't necessarily know all the neighborhoods. So I encourage you to look at it. We raised the issue at the meeting with the TA that removing so many bus stops and removing whole bus line would significantly impact upon the elderly, especially in the Gowanus housing and the public and the NYCHA projects that are down in our area, and make it much more difficult for them. They would said that they would look at it again, and especially the bus stops, removing essentially every other bus stop on Atlantic Avenue. We've asked them to reconsider this, but I would ask you to look at it, and I know that with the MTA, it's in the chat room. Please look at it. It's important. The next meeting is scheduled on January 12th, and to comment on it, frankly, I think it's a significant problem for the neighborhood, and I think it's a significant problem that they need our input on. They're looking like they're trying to look at like we're Queens. We're not Queens. I have a problem. I'm going to write them in a letter that I think there should be a cross Atlantic Avenue bus that goes down Atlantic Avenue and then meets all the other buses coming north to south. But we'll see what they can do that. I mean, we do have a chance for a redesign, and hopefully it will be redesigned that makes things better, not makes things worse. They do propose to increase frequency. They do propose to do a few other things, but they're saving time by essentially skipping stops. And reasonable people might disagree whether that's good or bad, but as I get older, I need those stops closer, not further away. The other thing also, Livingston Street is being redesigned at the same time. They're looking at making Livingston Street more of a bus and I forget the word, but it's sort of like it's semi-open street that would have less car traffic on it and be more amenable for bus traffic and everything else. So I would ask you to look at that as well, and we will hopefully be able to discuss this at the next week. I raised with them the fact that permit parkers are a big problem on those streets, as they are at Atlantic Avenue and a few other places, and it's a continuing kind of issue that the city has given lip service to, but done absolutely nothing about. They had a task force in Manhattan to get rid of the permit parkers. Well, that's nice. They never brought it to Brooklyn. And it's something that I will continue to raise and everything else. And finally, the BQE is beginning to become to a better picture. I was frankly disappointed with the presentation. I like the idea of increasing the parkland in our section. I think that that's important to do, but I think their vision is stilted. I think the vision is too narrow. Again, reasonable people might disagree with that. They proposed, and one of their triple cantilever concepts are called the stoop, the terraces, and the lookout. All right, and they each have different things. I attended the virtual, not the one in present. I'm very happy to hear that Lenny is now on the visioning, whatever they call it, section. I'm sure that Lenny and I will talk about these at great length. But I urge you, before, if those of you who are going to be coming to the Transportation Committee meeting, it's a very complex plan. Their presentation did not, I think, do justice to what they have planned for it. It's going to need to be looked at very, very carefully and commented on. I'm glad that Julie Barrow at the section I was with that agreed to come to our Transportation Committee meeting. I have lots of questions for her about, and we'll try to get the questions to her beforehand about what their concept is, given the fact that they're talking about adding the third lane back in. Those of you who know on the committee, we raised the issue with them about how dangerous this section is. We've been trying to get them to come to us to discuss what the amelioration they are putting in, how it's working, what kind of accidents are happening, what they see is going on, and they have not been forthcoming, frankly. I believe that the city has come to a conclusion already that there will not be a tunnel there, that there will be one of these concepts, the stoop, the terraces, or the lookout, which are all concepts for the triple cantilever. With all due respect to Letty, who thinks that they're doing the north and the south, the only thing that the city has responsibility for is this section from Stan Street to Atlantic Avenue is owned by the city. Getting the State Department of Transportation to sit down and discuss this with us has been like banging your head against the wall. And we've been doing that, as I pointed out at the committee. First meeting I attended on the BQE was in 2003 or 2004. So this has been going on 18 years. We had the the mayor's special committee who did a whole presentation, and there's a whole booklet on this. All right. There are issues. There are significant transportation infrastructure under this area that makes tunneling and a whole bunch of other things differently. There's a $800 million, $200 million sewer intercept under Furman Street that costing to move that alone could be $1 billion. So that this is a monetary issue. I know that they talk about the fact that this is a once in a lifetime chance to get federal money. I remind people that the way this works is the State Department of Transportation gets the money. That's what's been under the law. I don't know if it's under this one, but that's been the law. And whenever they've had to do a major section in the city, Upstate says, that's nice. What are you going to do for us so that you don't need one time the money, you need twice the money, both for upstate and for downstate. And that's a real significant political problem. All right. We have weight and motion has not been put into effect yet. We've got congestion pricing where you hear people complaining about, and I see Lenny says to fix this up. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up that's going to have to be discussed. And I urge you to look at the presentation, read it carefully, look at it carefully, and come with questions so that we can try to get some answers. I'm happy to answer anything I can.
Now you understand why I said it's going to be hard for someone to get something past Sid and Esther. So we should all feel comfortable that of the many chairs and co-chairs that we have, that we definitely have Sid and Esther in the roles that they're in. So thank you both for that presentation. Next committee to present is Youth Education and Cultural Affairs.
Thank you so much, Chair Singletary. Good evening to everyone. I don't have new meetings to report, but I want to raise the issue of the new school that's coming online. The Albee Square School was designated to be an elementary school, might now be a high school. High school doesn't give priority to students in the area. We fought so hard for this, etc. So the timeline isn't clear for when they're going to make the final decision. But I am going to meetings, about this matter and will be reporting back. And if it's needed to have some type of vote, it might have to be before my committee meets at the full meeting, and I would have to explain it because I don't know the time frame. But considering that we had this elementary school as a priority for so long, I think we have to opine on it. And the other matter is that there is not a constituency for this school yet, because people in the neighborhood don't really know about it. There isn't active parents or potential parents, but there are high school parents who are already talking about it and saying they want their kids to go to that high school in that spot. So I'm just laying this out. And then the next thing, of course, will be the middle school that we fought for in Pacific Park, where they also want to move the high school after a few years. More to come. Have a great holiday, everyone.
Thank you, Betty. I just do want to take a moment and acknowledge that the Youth Education and Culture Affairs Committee is the only committee at the moment that doesn't have a vice chair. And that's because we lost the dearly departed Dorothea Thompson Manning during the holiday season. I ask that you keep their family in your thoughts, and we will get Ms. Firebush and the committee an able vice chair in the new year. But thank you, Betty, for your service. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, I want to move to the next item in the agenda. And this is where we have other executive business. And I'm going to call on our good friend, Mr. Dwight Smith, to give us an update on, as no one can like Mr. Smith, on what's happening at the Atlantic Yards. We haven't heard from Mr. Smith in a while, and I don't want people to think that things aren't still happening and progressing there. And so this should be a very insightful and informative update, as it always is. And with that, I want to turn over to Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Yeah, you haven't heard from me very much because nothing has really happened. You do have my report that summarizes where we are. Basically, all the construction that has been started is done. And now the project is basically laying fallow. We've gotten 3,200 units built. There's still 3,200 more to be built. 30% of them, 877 of them, are the affordable housing units that we've really kind of focused on. I did mention what the coalition, the Brooklyn Speaks Coalition, sees as next steps, since the project is really just languishing. And you should first know that there still is no recognition from ESD or the Greenland Partners folks that we're not going to get at a minimum the 877 affordable housing units done that are supposed to get done in the next 2 years. There's no new construction starting because there is no construction on the platform. The last conversations that the coalition has had with the folks at ESD is that they're waiting for the Greenland Partners to provide a new proposal. As far as we know, there's no new proposal, and certainly there hasn't been any discussions with the AYCDC board. The coalition takes the position now is that it's really this, we need the city to put pressure on the state to get Greenland out of the deal. Greenland is essentially an insolvent Chinese development corporation. And so the expectation that they're going to do anything other than sell off the remaining pieces of the leases for the parcels is about it. But that can't be done as long as there's no place to develop those leases. That is to say, the platform. In terms of looking to conversations with the development community, we talked about how we need to get more engagement. GIB has had conversations with various folks in the development community. The key issue is that nobody, at least at this point, believes that building over the platform is economically viable, at least at this point, particularly since there's still no subsidies for the housing portion of it. What the thought is now is if there can be an independent analysis demonstrating what a new future of the project might look like, bringing in interested developers, of which there are at least two that that we worked with, and an engineer that might be able to do something. TF Cornerstone is one of those developers that they've been talking with. Those folks believe that the project could be completed, but they have had their own independent discussions with the MTA. The MTA is taking a position that there's got to be a developer, there's got to be a completion bond guarantee for completing the entire platform before they would sign off on anything. Right now, the notion has been from Greenland that they would be doing it in two separate stages. Given where Greenland is financially, MTA isn't buying that. And so the other developer is Alloy. Alloy is interested primarily in Site 5, that is to say the PC Richards site, although they would entertain a notion of being part of a developer group that looks at building out the whole thing. So the notion is now trying to find an engineering firm that could give us a couple of things. One, some cost per square feet estimates to build the platform, and as part of the team, the developers who could talk about what it would take to build the housing. And see if they can come up with some sort of independent financial analysis of how to move this thing forward. Now, in terms of talking with local officials, there has been a conversation with Arnand Armin. The furthest up the chain we've gotten at City Hall is with this guy who is the real estate advisor to the deputy mayor. And in a couple of days, there will be a conversation with Jessica Katz, the housing czar. We'll see where that goes. The notion is, we now know that there's this great love fest between the governor and the mayor around building of housing, and particularly affordable housing. Maybe there is something that comes out of that that we can start to move this thing forward. But in the first instance, it seems to me, at least, that the city has to take a controlling, interest in pushing the governor to do something. And that's, not happening at the moment. It's not a particularly positive discussion here. But that's really where we are. We are nowhere. And hoping that we can get, and I've mentioned this, for the last couple of years, we need local political leadership to push this. Yes, we have some state folks who are doing the talking, but we don't have, the borough presidents or the mayor having the completion of this project that the state has promised, 3,200 units of housing, 877 of which affordable. We don't have any momentum for that. Give Bocconi is prepared to talk to the committee sometime in next year, if that's something that is beneficial. And maybe by then the coalition will have gotten more interest from the local electeds to push for getting this thing done. But in the first instance, we've got a deadline coming up in 2 years, May of 2025, which the results of which are supposed to be the 877 units. That's going to be a fail. Which means that going forward, assuming ESD enforces the penalties, there will be $1.7 million a month that the developer gets as a penalty. Those monies will go into the city's affordable housing trust fund. We'd rather have a way to deal with the housing units being built, of course, but at a minimum, we've got to make sure that when there is a fail, there's no if involved here, that the trigger is pulled on getting the penalties assessed. And really, that's where we are. I have been reporting on kind of this incremental completion movement toward development, but we're all done now. The units are being rented up, and we're waiting for 3,200 units more of housing in general.
Mr. Smith, thank you as always for that comprehensive update. It's interesting. I think all of us that are paying attention, while a lot of the big ticket items, I think you say, are complete, particularly around construction. It's the next level, next layer now that we have to go through and pay attention to, and that's where the advocacy is going to be very vital for what comes next. With that, let me just pivot to Jessica Thurston, who has a question, and then after her, Mr. Flanoy, who has a question.
Thank you, Lenny. Dwight, my question is just to your point around the need for local officials. Are the relevant council members involved? And if not, well,
yes. They've attended our meetings, as have the state reps, Mr. Brisport, for our I can never get her name right, but
Assemblywoman Flores.
Ms. Flores, and then of course Assemblywoman Simon. But it is getting, and interestingly enough, I think I mentioned in the update that at this press conference that was had, when the purpose of which was really to try to bring attention to the first fail by the developer not building the urban room, and that the penalty for that fail was supposed to be $10 million paid monthly. The ESD chose not to pull the trigger on that. We thought if they did that, it would be indicative of their interest in seeing or pushing on
the council members are. That was sort of what I wanted to make sure about, because I feel like that's somewhere where we could play.
So they're sort of there. Yes.
Okay.
But again, we need to get them to push the borough president to push the mayor.
Okay. All All right.
are
Thanks.
some,
Just wanted to get a sense of their involvement.
yeah, they at least have attended meetings. Yes. And-
Yeah,
and-
Dwight.
Sir,
Yeah, Dwight, just out of curiosity, what district are the undeveloped sites in?
in 8,
In 8?
yeah, it's all.
Community,
pretty much all
the
is in
community
8.
board district.
We,
Yeah,
we,
community board
we have a
is.
tiny portion. We've just been sort of the activist community board in, as part of the plan. But all of these units really now are in 8.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Mr. Smith, thank you. As always, I appreciate it. And we look forward to having you come back, I guess, when there are other updates, or maybe a first quarter update as things progress in the
sure.
new year. But you always have an open invitation here at Community Board too. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly will do.
Outside of Mr. Smith, is there any other executive business to come before us this evening? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Sid.
I left one thing out, and I know that was long. We got a notice from DOT that said in the future, they will only give the community board 30 days to comment on any open street. So that from the time that we get the request for comment, we will only have 30 days. I have one issue with that, which I will, with your permission, raise. I don't have a problem where it's one street or one, and it's not 24/7. But if they're proposing a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week open street that's more than one block, I really think that those kinds of things need some time to get notice out to the community, to give the community, and sometimes even do a public hearing, to do to get comments on. We only have an advisory role on this. We only have 30 days to comment on at all. And as I said, I don't have a problem where it's it's a school open street or other kind of open street, but where they're creating a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week open street that's multi-block like they did on Willoughby, that we need more time to comment. The community it's insufficient community time for the community to comment.
Yeah, Sid, that's a great point to raise. I don't agreed. I don't know that anyone would disagree that that's a very short window. And, as we've seen thus far, I think it's vital for the community boards to have a voice and opine on the different streets for multitude of reasons. But to kind of rush through the process, I don't know that is advantageous to all the stakeholders that we represent as a community board. So thank you for that. Esther?
We also need to know as a community, who is in the group? What is the name of the group that put in the application for the open streets? Okay, on Willoughby Street, we finally figured out who the group was. And they said that they reached out to the churches, the Haitian Baptist Church, other churches, and we found out that that was a total lie. So we need to find out who is putting in these applications and are they really reaching out to the community. The Haitian church on Vanderbilt is having problems with their funerals because of open streets. And they lied and said they reached out to them and the church said, no, no one has. They also said they reached out to PS20. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, I think those are all fair points, Bill.
Mr. Meyer, can I ask you a question? On
No,
shared streets-
no. I'm not gonna have a meeting.
Oh, no, I'm just gonna ask you a question about also comments
Okay.
about shared
Okay.
streets.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Is there a time frame on comments on shared streets as opposed to open streets?
What they tend to do on share streets, whoever's proposing it, has been coming in front of the board and giving us very much more time to comment on that we've in the past. we've had as much sometimes as 6 months notice before they do this. We've had preliminary discussions on shared streets. Shared streets has not been, I mean, look what they're doing with the shared streets in Livingston, because that's what they're proposing on Livingston. They're doing a whole process. So shared streets has been much less of a notice issue than the open streets has been.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because the shared streets on Hoyt Street, that short section between Livingston and Scrimmorn, it's been a major problem for traffic and also for individuals doing deliveries. There's constantly people out there being blocked because a delivery truck has to park in the street to make deliveries or on the sidewalk. So it's a major problem.
Well, that's really an open street, I believe, not a shared street.
Between Skimmerhorn and Livingston, it's a shared street. There are chairs and tables and everything on the street.
No, they give it, you should let, I mean, you should let Taya know, we can pass it on to DOT. DOT does provide that if there are issues, they will more than happy to come and work out with whoever the who made the proposal for shared street to discuss it with the community about resolving problems.
I just want to add to, we've had, I mean, there's several items that sit within community board too, like the bus redesign, like the BQE, MCAP, Crown for Atlantic Avenue, even open streets. While there's value in a letter coming from the community board with, perhaps it's my signature and Taya as an example, don't let that preclude us from each advocating and sending letters and doing our own push. Because we're members of the community board, we have an opportunity to engage with representatives from time to time, whether they be elected officials or representatives from the different agencies. Do not mute your voice, do not reduce your influence by relying solely on the community board and the board office or one collective letter. As an example, I'm sure if any one of us were elected officials and you got one letter from an entity, as opposed to 600 letters from all the members of that entity, I'm sure you would pay more attention to the 600 than you would the one. So for the various issues that exist before us, please do not make the mistake. And I encourage you to, if it's something that you're passionate about, yes, bring it up before the community board like we do from time to time, but don't let that be your only vehicle to advocate for an issue or to speak against or maybe even amplify and highlight a point. The more we do as ambassadors to the communities we represent, to get them involved and to get involved, I think the more the messages will be heard. So that's just my final comment around support and what we can do to make things and hopefully make changes in a positive way. With that, I don't see any other items under the exec business section. So let me pause now to see for agenda item number 8, if there's any comments on the community, any community topics or any feedback from members of the community that are still present with us this evening. All right, seeing no feedback from the community, I wish everyone happy holidays, whether that's happy Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa. Thank you all. I wish everyone best wishes for a healthy and prosperous new year. And let's get back together again and do it bigger and better in 2023. So with that, I say good evening and have a good night, everyone. Get home safe.
You as well. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.